Hello friends, today we're going to be discussing the book Grieving, Dispatches from a Wounded Country by Cristina Rivera Garza, translated by Sarah Booker. Before we get too far into this review, I did want to note that while this video is not monetarily sponsored, I did receive my copy of the book from the Feminist Press in order to review. The book features poetry and essays, as well as commentary and responses to other works about the modern state of Mexico, with a particular emphasis on violence, femicide, and the misnamed war on drugs. Because it is more difficult to simply synopsize books of this nature, instead I'm going to be sharing direct quotes from the book that I found to be particularly powerful or gave a really good idea of the type of information and education that you can get from the text. It only took me a few minutes to understand that this and nothing else would be my next book. I quickly understood that this book, which would come as a result of a reader's invitation, would be a truly collaborative work, something that came over me as much as through me. The Impossible works like this sometimes. I gathered articles I had written and published, as well as texts that had not yet seen the light of day. I included poems and chronicas and personal essays. Essays written directly in English also found their place in these pages. I did not respect a chronological order, but carefully organized the sequence in which each text would appear. The internal dialogue, the ceaseless drifting. I was convinced that the book should be a tactile experience, as Martha Rothko wanted from all artistic practices. I wanted the air to get in it, the air of the present. In reality, this doesn't end until it ends. Few things make us so aware of the bloody repercussions of every tiny act like fear does. Simply standing on a corner, turning your head, knowing a certain person, having met at a party, all of this can become, with the passage of time, the cause of that shooting, that kidnapping, that rape. In expansion, blown out of proportion, no decision in your daily life escapes paranoia. Fear isolates. Fear teaches us to mistrust. Fear drives us crazy. With hands in pockets and head bent forward, those who are afraid are thus transformed into the ultimate tool of the status quo. Traces of violence still proliferate in a city trying to leave the war behind. Dilapidated houses, empty lots, boarded-up buildings. Stories of youth lost to war abound among people attending readings or creative writing workshops. And yet, alongside the sorrow and the endless grieving, something akin to a sense of purpose, to a determination beyond belief, emerges on populous streets and in public gatherings. Men and women remember the lives lost, and in weeping for them, in offering and welcoming condolences, they conjure their presence wherever they go. Mike Davis, the brilliant North American critic and author of the classic City of Courts, once argued that the border wall is nothing more than a horrifying political spectacle, effective only in justifying the violence of border crossings and then in reinforcing the power dynamics of U.S. imperialism. The wall hasn't been able to do what walls are supposed to do: to suspend the flow, stop the passage, contain the material. The border wall hasn't been able to prevent the incessant crossing of people required by the economy and lifestyle of the United States. It's a gray morning in the 2nd Ward, the historically Mexican neighborhood in Houston, Texas. It's also a crushingly silent morning. The neighbor across the street, the one who regularly comes outside shirtless to hang clothes on the laundry line, has broken his routine. He does not come outside this morning. The sounds of motors or of footsteps outside cannot be heard either. Car radios, which frequently invade the neighborhood with songs or interviews, have fallen silent. The empty streets, lined with tall, immobile walnut trees, let the cold wind that announces the still subtle impending presence of winter blow through as it pleases. It's a war zone, like an area directly after conflict where everything has been lost. It is the morning of November 9th, 2016, and Donald Trump has won, against almost all expectations, the presidency of the United States. What does it feel like? Fucked up. That's how it feels. The almost 15 million Latinxes that, according to census data, live in California have been a demographic majority since July 1st, 2015, and they are not going to cease to exist. And would it be better for us to leave, asks my son, who yesterday, with all his friends, went out to vote to support, among other things, the legalization of recreational marijuana. And I don't hesitate to tell him no, to tell him we are staying. To tell him this has been our country for at least 3 generations. To tell him we have the right to have as happy and full a life as anyone else. To tell him that, instead of thinking about fleeing, let's think about building. To tell him we have to protect our strengths and get in touch with our people to continue forming lively, persistent communities. I've never had much confidence in a democracy of the powerful for the powerful, and I am convinced that the neoliberal devotion to profit is shared with greater or lesser cynicism of both parties in contention. What we lose in this moment of unmasking is not democracy or equality, but the false notion that it's a good thing to be offered the best part of a bad deal. When the enemy's face is revealed in such an obvious way, when things are named without any tact and without the veil of good manners, it is the moment to show our true face as well. It's called living in resistance. It's called searching among the desolation of the morning after, turning to others to imagine the unimaginable, the world we want to live in. Hard times are coming for us indeed, but also for them. Young Mexican women are enraged, and rightfully so. According to official SESNSP statistics from 2019, 10 women are killed and 4,320 are raped in Mexico on a daily basis. They disappear on dusty roads in the hinterland. They text desperate cries for help after being abducted in taxicabs. They post warnings about their executioners on Facebook. They stand in long lines to file legal charges against their abusers to no avail. They go missing in crowded neighborhoods or faraway towns. They are there and suddenly they aren't. A murder is flickering, their body parts painstakingly described on the news. A severed head, 2 legs, a hand. Meanwhile, they are sorely missed in offices and classrooms, at parties and family reunions. Their absence constitutes the black hole of a nation gone awry. Most people who acknowledge violence against women have generally accepted that rapists and killers are deranged men from the working classes or unhinged men from organized crime ranks. But the names that the Mexican Me Too movement aired in public belong to well-known figures from prominent backgrounds or well-educated men, authors, publishers, curators, the public was not used to fearing. The enemy, it turned out, was at home. The things our family members tell us in hushed whispers when they visit us from those border cities are not exaggerations. You can now go to certain areas and the stench of scorched bodies from the ground underneath you isn't so obvious, but things haven't calmed down. It is not an excess of care nor a proclivity for melodrama that makes each farewell be preceded by a take good care of yourself. No one is sure whether this embrace, the embrace of a goodbye, will be the last. We had lived for decades under the frightening grind of our femicide. Our mothers were dying, our sisters, our cousins, our neighbors were all dying. Even our enemies were dying. Everyone was dying. They didn't stop dying. We got used to looking at one another with the grieving eyes of survivors. We wrote essays, we joined activist groups, we included more women on our class syllabi, we raised our voices in countless marches. But there they were, they followed us everywhere, those ever-increasing statistics. 3 women a day, 6 women a day, 9 women a day. By January 2019, 10 women a day were murdered in Mexico. It was impossible not to wonder when it would happen to me, when it would happen to you, who looks at me, who is at my side. When will they kill us? We already knew it, but we confirm it to ourselves. Those who produce the basic goods, those who keep us alive, are immigrants who, even considering the recent essential workers stamp, still don't have documents or, even worse, health insurance. In addition to doctors and nurses, we depend on those who harvest lettuce and eggplants, the grocery store cashier, those who clean the bodies of the elderly, those who fix washing machines, those who deliver mail. The rest of us couldn't be here, digitally fulfilling our roles, if there weren't men and women out there bent over vast vegetable fields, risking their lives to, paradoxically, keep living. The book was very intelligent and eloquently written, although I did oftentimes find myself personally feeling a little bit inadequately knowledgeable while reading it. And this definitely was not the fault of the author, but my own personal ignorance. Like, that was for sure a me problem. Because there are oftentimes a lot of authors that I do read that are just very pretentious, but like, you know, the type of authors who are just pretentious for the sake of being pretentious. Like, yes, technically the things that they're saying are like well written, except the way that they're inaccessible makes it feel very poorly written. Rivera Garza was definitely not that. She was just very clearly an intelligent and educated woman in topics that I am not. So I did just find myself feeling a little bit uneducated while reading the book, I'm not gonna lie. It definitely improved with a second reading. I did go ahead and read the book twice to make sure I properly understood what I was reading and was able to fully digest the content. Because honestly, it was sad. It was hard to read because it's really upsetting to be faced with these dark statistics and things that you know are going on, but seeing so many of them collected in one place on paper is just so overwhelming to be confronted with. And I think it's definitely necessary for a lot of people, but at the same time, it also kind of leaves you feeling a little bit hopeless. Like, there's so much information, and I would say the book is definitely an informational read. You're not really going to get any enjoyment out of it, but you're certainly going to get education and knowledge from it, which is definitely incredibly important. Not every read is going to be a fun little thing. It was just so overwhelming, and the education was on a lot of dark topics and the facts. But I felt myself a little bit lost knowing how to proceed from there, knowing how to make a difference and how to change the things that are true in this book, you know? Because obviously the point of the compilation of this book is to make lasting change, and so that this is not the modern reality forever. But I don't really know where to go from there, knowing all of this information. I find myself a little lost knowing what to do about it, and it's really frustrating to be confronted with that. I also do feel like the book at times felt a little bit less like a complete piece on its own and more of a jumping off point for other works to further look into different topics. There was a lot of commentary and like reactions to and mentions of other authors' works, which definitely added to my own feelings of inadequacy reading the book, but was also like a really good jumping off point for ideas of where to go from here and like what other works to look into to get more information about the mentioned topics and themes. Of course, I think it is so incredibly important for individuals to educate themselves, especially in topics that are important and that they are not already familiar with. Like, a lot of the information in this book was very new to me, or stuff that I only knew a very base level amount of information about. And I think it is so important for individuals to educate themselves. But I also understand why a lot of people don't, because the education feels inaccessible to them, or because they simply don't want to know the information. But it is incredibly important to learn that information and to be able to do something about it, to know what needs to be improved, and ideally one day know how to improve them. I am not exactly sure we are at that point yet, at least not on a personal level. I don't know what I can do to change things, but there are so many women and there are so many different individuals who are putting in that work and doing that, and many of them are mentioned throughout the book. And I do believe that Rivera Garza is one of those individuals herself. Obviously, she is a pioneer in these topics and writing educational works and being a teacher herself. And I think that that is fantastic, and I very much look forward to continuing to see her and her colleagues' work. But I would be lying if I said I didn't feel a little bit lost after this read, and ultimately a bit bummed out, to put it ineloquently. There are definitely better ways that I could express myself, but I think at the end of the day, it just really fucking sucks to be confronted with the horrible things that people are going through, especially because since this book was published in 2020 during the pandemic, things have gotten worse. Things have gotten a lot worse, both in Mexico and the United States, and it really, really fucking sucks. is the most concise way to put it. But I also do think that that means that now more than ever, it is so important to continue educating yourselves and to know this information, to be able to do something about it. And I also completely acknowledge and understand that my opinion as a white individual is not very important when it comes to these topics. This is not about me, and I absolutely acknowledge and embrace that it is not about me. Typically, I wouldn't even really be sharing my thoughts on this type of book in a public forum because I don't think my voice is the voice that needs to be heard in regards to these topics. But I was requested to review this book, so I will happily do that because I love informational works and I love possibly being able to educate others. And quite frankly, sometimes it's easier for the white people to hear it from other white people. But anyways, I wish that this was a little bit more of an upbeat and positive book review, but I do think that it is very important nonetheless. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.